Hey there, welcome to episode number 16 of our second season for the Disaster Podcaster. We have a really great and interesting show today. I will tell you now, get ready. It might be longer than our usual. This guest and I seem to kind of linger and go on about things, and it might get a little heated. So I want you to take your earmuffs off and look at the company that you're keeping when you're listening to it. But we're going to be professional. We're going to be not. But I'm bringing on the incredible Andy McCabe onto the Disaster Podcaster today, and I would like you to welcome Andy with me. Andy, welcome.
Well, what's up, buddy? How you been, man?
Crowd roar. Is that roars in your head, right? You hear that roar?
That's what I hear every morning I get out of bed. That's what I hear.
That's what I thought. Well, listen, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule shopping at Target for that shirt. Looks like the Japanese Land of the Rising Sun shirt. I think what we have to do to be authentic and true here is we have to clear some fucking bullshit up.
Let's do it. You go first. I'll do cleanup.
I mean, I'm just gonna go fucking. I'm going straight in. What's the deal with the fucking rebels, dude? You know, I get kicked out, and I planned on making gazillions of dollars and be famous in fucking Times Square and shit. But this ego, kicked out, coup d'etat bullshit. I mean, what's up with that?
At the end of the day, there can be only one, and the group was just not big enough for both of us. And I saw an opportunity. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. And you got to watch your back, man. You gotta wake up in the morning and get your head on a swivel, because I'm coming for you. That's
coming
it
for me. I've never been scared of you, dude. Okay, everybody, we're fucking kidding. We are absolutely joking, and really the point of today's podcast, and Andy, really do thank you for now there might be just room for just one. That's very much could be true, but Andy and I speak often. This is being recorded late October, and there seems to be this perception that we have heat with each other and that we have ambiguity and things like that, and it's just not true. It's true that we're not as close as we once were, but that's not because of an event. It's because of life and direction and things. But I think Andy and I are going to talk a little bit about where it all started and the things that we went through. Andy, I'm sure you'll agree, the things we went through, you don't just forget those things, and they become what they were. And so thank you for coming on, helping me clear this up. I just want to start with everyone that we plan to, we're not actors, and we wanted to kind of have a little fun in the beginning, because that's what everybody feeds into. But they're sorry, go somewhere else, look for another group, because if you
want drama, you came to the wrong place. And I think that goes back to what you and I were trying to do from the very beginning of everything, 2015. Yeah, the drama started early. But for the first couple years, we were able to kind of push it off and kind of rise above it. But at the end of the day, it was just too much bullshit too fast. And I'm not saying we did everything perfect. We didn't. There were some major mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day, I still believe you and I were genuine in our intent. And our intent was to bring attention to the problems that we deal with in this industry and elevate people in this industry above the fray and bring us together as an industry and rise above. And I think we've said it over and over again, the rising tide will float all boats. And we were trying to be that tide. And I believe at the end of the day, there was just not enough. There was too many naysayers. There's too many people that wanted to see us fail. And there's too many people that we made nervous. And that's what it came down to. We made a lot of people nervous.
Yeah. Let's Andy, let's just for a moment, let's be authentic that we have a lot of listeners that don't know what the hell we're talking about. So let's pretend
that's fair.
Some, every day, it's like gremlins. You get them wet and they're multiplied. So we have a lot of new
feed them after midnight.
Feed them after midnight and get them wet. They turn into trolls. I know a few of those. Dated a few too. Boom boom. 18 years this year. Not the one I've got now. She's not a troll. Hey, let's tell everybody about. Do you remember actually how you and I first met, or should I tell that story? Do you remember?
I think you should tell that story because it's a blur to me. It is. I mean, 2015 was only 7 years ago, but God damn.
7 years ago. Yeah, it's like a couple of presidents ago, right? So
I got way more gray hair than I did then.
Yeah, look at this.
Right?
Every one of them. Yeah. 2015, I was still, before I really launched my full-blown consulting company, restoration, whatever. And
a couple years before.
Yeah, it was a couple 2 years before. I think I was already dabbling in a contract situation. I was working with a company out here in Virginia and Maryland and Mid-Atlantic. And I came across, I was on LinkedIn a little bit and I saw some of your content, which everyone says, that's how we knew Andy. That's why Andy did what he did, because that is the way you really brought that to this industry. But I saw the 24-hour tech. And the principle of the 24-hour tech, and I purchased it. And then I found out later you were giving it away for free, but I didn't mind paying for it. I think it was worth 100 times what I paid for it. But I adapted and adopted a lot of it into the training that we already did for 6 months.
Nice.
Yep. I still to this day think that what you created there needs a place to be on the bookshelf for every single restoration company in the world.
I think it does. Thanks for that. There's a whole bunch of copies right over there. So I'll send them.
We need a 2.0 version later though.
We need a 3.0. Yeah.
3.0. So I, for some reason, I reached out, we connected, and it started into a chat online. And I said, hey, give me your number. Let's have a phone call. Cause I agreed with a lot of things you were saying. Although I didn't come from, my background was heavily in large commercial, and our fight,
large loss.
Yeah. We didn't have this delay, deny, defend, or not in the way we felt it was, or at least the cuts
not the
didn't
same
hurt
way.
as much. Small businesses feel those thousands of cuts way more than a big company does.
Yep.
So I wasn't quite, in the company that I ran over here, we didn't play the insurance game. We billed the insurance directly, and that's all we did, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just noise. So I had a phone call with you in the house that I'm still living in. I have a 122-yard driveway, and I got on the phone with you. You're 3 hours behind me in a time zone. So my time was 8:30 or 9, probably 5 year clock your time. And we started talking. And I remember that day, I think I walked 14,682 steps on this. Or close. I mean,
up and down the driveway. Up and down the driveway.
Counting, but I'm walking and talking, and we went beyond the book into, we both had this, and I think we both hate bullies. I think people that are taken advantage of for their lack of education and lack of civilization and things like that. I think that's a predatory thing. And I think we both kind of talked about that night. But then we both had different sets of groups of friends that all felt like their businesses were being targeted, because individually, I remember that every one of them thought that every email they got, every call, they felt they were the only one getting it.
I'm the only one. Yep.
I'm the only one.
Why am I being singled out? I must be doing something wrong because they don't give everyone else as hard a time. Yep.
Well, and I'll cut the bill because I'm told I have to.
I have to, right? What am I supposed to do?
I have to use Xactimate. It's written somewhere in the law. Now, I haven't found that law, but I have to use it.
I haven't found that policy either. Yeah.
The prices are horrible and we don't know why. And all these things were happening, and you had a lot of the answers to this. And so we coined this thing. We said, this industry needs a reboot.
Yeah.
It needs to be shaken out of its pre-concept of the last 18, 20 years and realize that the whole world has changed and we have not ultimately done a great job with it. Technology, this was before Matterport, I would say we were point and shoot cameras.
Just before Matterport. Yeah. But I mean, 2018 I bought my first one, but they were doing their thing before that.
All these things, and that's going to play into later what we discovered. But we said we're 2.0, we're like, I would love it. we started a group on LinkedIn called Restoration 2.0. And it did not take long between people we already knew and other people having this frustration to jump on. And that was where we kind of got that started. And that was in, I know that it was in spring of 15. So we kind of let this.
Was it 15 or 14? Because I feel like we had that first. When was the first Bend event then?
16.
Oh, really? It was 16. Yeah. All right.
So
the older I get, the more mush gets up in here. All right.
Well, they say the memory is the second thing to go. So you're supposed. I don't remember what the first one is. So
I don't remember either.
But the I think it was 16 Bend, Oregon, and that was the thing is we let this thing marinate and build, and we collected a tribe of people who were aligned with us and suffering from it, and then conceptually had components that could add to the conversation.
Yeah, and that's really where it started with that conversation, and you and John. And there were several others that you weren't the only conversation I had.
No,
you're not the only long driveway conversation I had that year. And what it came down to was what I stumbled upon, or what I couldn't shut up about more like than anything else, is what everyone was experiencing, but no one was talking about. Everyone was going through the same thing. And I just happened to be, so 2015, I was a year out of, so 2014, I moved to Bend, worked for a franchise, motherfucker fired me 4.5 months in, he fired me 2 weeks before Christmas, which happened to be 2 weeks before he would have to pay any kind of unemployment. And a lot of the reasons that he gave me a list of reasons why he fired me, and number of those reasons was essentially I wasn't playing nice with adjusters, and I have zero apologies for that, and I have zero F's to give to people who have if I make more money, it doesn't hurt them. Right? If I have more profit into a job, it doesn't hurt the adjuster. But these people have a massive effect on my business and my career at that time. They have infinite control over whether or not I had a job that Christmas. That made me so angry. That was a culmination moment for me. I've fucked up my life before that on my own, but this was beyond that. This was somebody outside of my control, outside of my business, outside of the person that I worked for, essentially got me fired because they didn't like my approach. And my approach was customer first, business second, adjuster, no, not even third. Adjuster doesn't even rank on my priority list because they have zero to do with my personal life, my professional life, or whether or not I'm going to be able to do a good job or not. So that year, so 2014, I was fired 2014, 2015, around Christmas, New Year's, I said, I'd had enough. I'm done. I'm not going to play this game anymore. And then the gloves came off. And that's where that messaging, that early messaging, I mean, you still give me a hard time from time to time. I was hard, man. I was angry. I was harsh, and I was really out there to hurt somebody, and I was taking it personally, and I was making it personal.
Yeah.
But that's where that messaging started coming out. So multiple people that year, including you, called me up, and some of what I was saying was resonating. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, well, let's figure that out. Yeah. So we get together, and then we make the group, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, now what? Well, let's get together. Let's make it happen. Let's have an event. And that's what led to that first event.
Yeah. And so you did take things personal, but I think if we were to do a SWOT analysis on Andy McCabe, your strengths and weaknesses are both you're super emotional which means you can tell a great story. You can connect with people and suck them into the story, and they can find common ground, and you're passionate about it. So I watched the video not long ago. It said, when I'm on stage talking to people or online, you or me, or in your Ford truck, whatever, I'm not trying to convince people. I'm just trying to open up the lane where they can start thinking of things different than they had. And so this video I watched with Ed Milet said, I don't need this audience to believe me. I just need you to believe that I believe what I'm saying. You need to know that there's credibility, that I preach this shit. I've lived this stuff and I believe it. And then do with it what you will. Go back and say, listen, let it marinate, let it gestate, and create something of your own. And that's all we've ever done. So we went to LinkedIn and we did whatever. And we, Blaine, Chris Laney, who we didn't know, who's now a rock star icon in the industry. Sean Ivory, and there's a few, Jason Riggs, there's a few more people that were starting to kind of come around. And then we kind of quickly figured out that LinkedIn is not great for groups, right? It's not great for that type of forum. So we jumped over to Facebook. And I think I wasn't really that much into Facebook, but groups and Facebook allowed. So we went over there and put a Restoration 2.0. And I think this is a story I love to tell people. That was the beginning of the name. It was Restoration 2.0.
It was.
And we went
that
to
first event was called Restoration 2.0. That was the event.
Restoration 2.0 Summit. We had Sean Michael Lewis, who I still talk to.
I remember him. Yeah.
Kevin Dooley.
Dooley.
Ben Justinson was there early.
He was.
R. Davis Sweet, OP. We had a few people. Jason Reddick had to cancel. I was looking forward to seeing him, and I think scheduled to come out.
Yeah, never. She's in the boat of I don't want to ruffle any feathers, and we were coming at Exactwear pretty hard. Yeah, in those days, and she's tied in pretty close. A certified. Yeah. So and you're right. She lives in that sandbox. You can't really blow it up and nuke it. So Bob Timmel was early on. Bob Timmel,
Captain Bob. So anyway, we pulled this thing in Bend, Oregon. Everybody's like, "Why Bend, Oregon?" Because Andy lives there in his backyard, and it happens.
Because I didn't want to fly anywhere. That's why.
We don't have to fly. I took 7 flights to get there. No, I'm kidding. So it's it's per capita the most breweries in the world, but we found our way there, and it was great. A lot of people in that side of the country, John Grubb, a bunch of people drove in because it kind of worked for them better than the flights. And we had an agenda. We knew what we were going after a little bit, but we could never have planned to have the feeling and the kismet and the aura of the whole thing. And I think on the end of day one, I think we kind of sat around and said, Dave Meyer was there. You remember Dave and Jennifer? Jennifer was at the Norp Carnival, and they flew over,
and they changed plans mid event and came over
through the night and got landed.
And I think that's worth mentioning is this was not a unique idea, right? No. We didn't come up with this idea of let's get restorers together and start working together and talking about our common issues. Norp came up right at the same time.
It's hard to tell who was first, but probably
I think we started Facebook pages at the same freaking time. And so that just goes to show there was an energy there. Something was going to happen. Whether you and I did something with it or not, it was going to happen. We just happened to, we just happened to resonate with a certain subset of folks who decided that they liked the flavor of our Kool-Aid better than somebody else. But yeah, Jennifer, she didn't like what she was hearing, and she said, "Fuck this, I'm out." And they came through the night. That was crazy story.
Brenda. And Dave is texting her saying, this is real. This is awesome. This is kind of, I've been to, and they had both been to lots of conferences, and that ended up being the theme of this is we've all been to conferences,
and everyone has. Yeah, exactly.
But nothing felt like this. And we didn't know why, other than it was just raw and authentic, and we weren't following the posted prototype of how you put these things on. And
we were way outside the lanes. We were outside the box.
we had a few sponsors, but they were, Jarrett Steer, G Unit,
Mm-hmm.
Doug Distel, our buddy Doug, with United, a couple of people, but
he's still kicking around.
He is. He's doing great. He's in Tulum. He's in on vacation or not honeymoon, but maybe it's his honeymoon. But he's fell in love, and they're in Belize. He's in Belize right now.
Nice.
But we had this, and we had poker night, and it was all this stuff, and it was just a lot of album. I remember Danny Burnett standing up and giving the most heartfelt delivery of, guys, I've been in this business 25 years. I'm not all about rainbows and bonbons here. This has been my life, and I have watched it snatched. I didn't give it away. It was taken by this. And he goes, I'm here. Danny, I remember Danny. I still talk to Danny. He's not so much in the world of the fringe of the social media groups, but he's like, I'm here to save what there might be. And he was just like, I'm here to learn from some people who might have answers that I don't have. And, his wife, Diane, was there with him. So it was a lot of that. What did someone say? It's a little bit of a tent revival. John Grubb said it's part conference and part tent revival. And we're
it's really, and we were all just sitting there looking around the room going, oh my God, for the first time, I think in my career, I realized for real, these are my people. Yeah. We're not alone. We're in the power of just having, I think 70 people showed up, maybe 70, 60 people or something. It was not a lot of people, but it was more impactful, at least for me. I can't speak for anyone else who was there. It was more impactful for me than any conference I'd ever gone to in my life.
Yeah.
Because people were there for themselves, and they're there for each other. And you don't see that. You don't go to Contractor Connection and have that automatic bond with 4,000 people, because Contractor Connection, you're required to go there.
Well, the same could be said about the experience in RA. It's not enough time to really dive in and swell into something great. And we had, I think you're right. I think that 60 people was about it, including us and things like that. I mean, and the topics, Andy, were the speakers were not talking about the same old psychometrics and products and things. Sean Michael Lewis sat there and told everyone that, you see this device? At that time, 45% of home services were using that device. He told everybody about Google My Business, and it was free. You need, if you're not digital, you don't exist in a few years. Ends up, he was right.
100% right.
In a lot of ways. I mean, I think referrals still work, but you've got to bolster with that. Kevin Dooley, you remember Kevin Dooley's part? We came back from lunch or break. We all have red gummies and blue, not those kind of
red pills
gummies.
And blue pills.
Red pill, blue pill. And he's like, what if I told you that the what you believe is not true? And then David Sweet and his event,
he went long. He went long.
And his little setup was failed. It was his first time. He's now perfected that, but this was the inaugural. It's the first of anything, and I'm okay with that. But it's like, we should be checking this. And then it's the first time that I know of that Ben really dropped the feedback algorithm. You control the pricing of your own Xactimate, and how that's affected, and how not doing feedback is hurting your area. So it was just some really things that people were like, lots of writing stuff down, lots of note taking and stuff like that. So
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. That seems to be the last 3 or 4 months. It seems to be coming up more and more, percolating up to the top of my inbox. Should I customize my price list? How do I customize my price list? How do I justify customizing my price list? So what's your statement when someone says, I don't believe Xactimate is accurate in their pricing? And so what do you say? What's your take on custom pricing? I think I know, but I want to hear it.
Well, I think, when someone says, I don't feel like the pricing is contributing to the profitability for my company, I obviously ask, it's very possible you're right, but what makes you say that? Because I'm of the belief that most people don't know their numbers. So how do you know? Are you actually job costing? Are you really job costing and considering your true overhead? And
Nobody does.
What's the goal? What are you trying to? We've fallen in love with this program that just spits out a number, and it's comfortable, it's easy, it's warm and fuzzy, but we don't really know if it's good, except that everybody's using it, must be good. So I am not, and I get a reputation for being anti-Xactimate. I'm not. I think it's actually a brilliant program, and I think for reconstruction, you would be a fool to do any work without it. But I think it's a software. It's not a pricing platform. It's a place to build an estimate, but you have to know your pricing. I think the feedback, if you're using the published price, I've always said, why would that published price of labor rate affect everyone? If I got a small company and a big company, are you saying we have to charge the same thing? Does McDonald's and Fogo de Chao have to be the same?
Right. Right.
So I so when people say, I don't think it's working for me, I'll say, well, maybe not. There are a lot of people who don't use it at all, and they seem to be okay. I don't know what triggered that conversation, but I'll say, what makes you say that? And they're like, well, but they usually don't know how to dissect it. And I know X1 is now different, and I understand now that X1 you can customize a price kind of live, if you will. Is that true? You have
it's not much different than 28. They changed the pricing module, but it's not, fundamentally not different at all. It's just got a different look and feel to it.
And I always come from, when it comes to Xactimate, I come from a very loose place. I don't claim to be an expert, because I've never in my $580 million in mitigation career used Xactimate.
Right.
I know it enough from those of like you. I've learned more from you and Elena and Ben than I would ever need to know, because I've never used it. But I've learned enough, but I probably still, but I wish it had a calculator that I could put in what I pay a person and put in the components of the burden to employment. But the people aren't considering training. They aren't considering days off. They're not considering shop time, drive, all the other overhead burdens that don't go to a job goes into your overhead, and that has to be captured on a job. Your customers have to pay. And Andy, I love this new thing. You've heard it forever. I have too. When someone says that's a cost of doing business, I love to say, well, we agree on that. Thank you for saying that.
We agree.
Now we can start. Yes, it is a cost of doing business.
Now I start making my list. Yes.
My heavy retainer for my clients is paid for by my clients' customers if they're smart. What do you cost? I don't cost you anything if you, number one, implementing, and number two, passing all of your professional service costs off into your pricing. I love T&M. I love bulk pricing, loaded rates. My rate includes the overhead burden and the profit margin goal that I want to make. Yeah. And that's just it.
And so, if loaded rates is okay to use in a T&M, loaded rates are okay to use, period. End of story. No matter what platform you're using to organize it and make it look pretty.
I think part of being rebel, part of 2.0 is it's your damn business. It's your LLC. Use a crayon and a napkin if you really want to. Yep. You have to convince the customer of the value proposition. That's it. The price. Uncle Ed Cross said the same thing in Mike Fulton. The price ultimately is between the buyer and the seller of any transaction. I want to do it for this. Now, the customer doesn't know how to compare that to like McDonald's, and that's where that thing goes wrong. They don't even know we exist until we called. But I think that you need to convince your customer that I'm charging $85 an hour for a restoration technician, like a badass ninja. Oh, and the question is, oh, you pay them $85 an hour? Of course not. But I pay them this. I have insurance. I have overhead.
That's the loaded rate.
The loaded rate.
The loaded rate.
It's these headphones. I paid $350 or so for them. You think they cost $350 to make? No, there would have been no profit. So I love that conversation. And a lot of people aren't comfortable having that conversation. And again, it's easier just to take the adjuster who doesn't have that conversation, saying, what do you want to pay? Now, here's the thing with T&M and Xactimate, Andy, and this is kind of something I struggle with, because I ask myself, I push T&M myself, and I come from a commercial world where that does make most sense.
Right. In mitigation, commercial, larger, and you're using T&M Pro, which is a great tool.
Yeah, great tool. But here's the thing. If you've got two different ways to price a job, and Xactimate on this fire, I could have made a whole lot more money with my component line item pricing versus I was efficient and I worked smart and I did T&M and that number's lower. I want to use the higher number. The very fact that there's two different numbers, kind of throws a wrench into the whole thing. There should be one number, not a dollar more, dollar less, of what it took you to clean that job. But then the color of money kind of comes into the thing. I want to make the most I can. I believe most people believe in scarcity. There is no more money after this dollar. I'm going to make what I can now. It won't be tomorrow. And they're building businesses for weeks, not decades. So Xactimate is great. I don't like how people don't know how to use it. I used to really challenge Xactimate because I don't think they trained the contractor side how to use it. And I think it was weaponized against contractors by the insurance company. And I
don't think they trained anyone how to use it.
I don't think they trained you. They depended on you. They depended on you and others like you. And then that was just because you train differently than other people, and there's based on your beliefs. So I do think they dropped the ball there because they can't serve two masters. And every time they tried to do so, they, as Mike Fulton said, I started getting calls from people that I don't usually get calls from at the top of the executive level of the insurance companies. We had that video. You've seen the video of him saying, you're not supposed to use the price. And so my most powerful tool that I hand out now, Andy, is a PDF of section number 7, or I think it moved to 9, of the Xactimate terms and conditions. The rule by which all users are supposed to follow is.
It might be 10 now.
It might be 10. They keep adding it. I hope they don't take it out, but it's the way they get away from price fixing and antitrust. And it's saying our price is not intended to be global in nature, and it will not be applicable to all contractors, depending on the job size, complexity, location.
And to use the program, you agree not to prevent
or preclude payment. Yeah.
Prevent or preclude deviations from the published price list.
Yep. But what that
Xactimate's, I've had this conversation like 3 days ago. I had no, yesterday. It was yesterday. Shit. What day is it? What month is it? What year is it? I had an attorney on the phone, and we were talking about that. And I said, there's 5 or 6 different papers from Xactimate telling us it's up to the user to determine the proper price for that job in that market. And they've said it 6 or 7 different times. So it's on us.
But what that takes, Andy, is if I hand that PDF to someone, it takes big old cojones. It takes balls to stand up against the big bad insurance company and then say, oh, what if I'm blacklisted? I said, red alert, you're already blacklisted. Unless you're a program vendor, you're already targeted. Don't kid yourself.
There.
You're not on their fucking Christmas list. Let's get past this for a moment and say,
but that fear is real. And that fear, I think, contributed to a lot of the negativity that came around the Restoration 2.0 and then in turn the Restoration Rebels. Is
let's go back to that. Let's go back
as soon as we put up that map. Right. We did a Google overlay. Oh my God. Yeah. It was single-handedly the greatest and the worst thing we could have done, because we put up a map that listed all the members, where they are in the United States. So you could just follow the link. Oh, where's a Restoration Rebel in Alabama? There's a Restoration Rebel in Wyoming, blah, blah, blah. I think the thing was up for 24 hours before you and I both started getting phone calls. Our phones are ringing off the hook. Yeah, and it was
DEFCON 5. Yep.
Get me off the map. What do you mean? Yep. What do you mean? Get me off the map. Take me off the map. The claims manager for Nationwide Insurance just called me, and they said, if I'm on that map, they're going to kick me off their program.
Yep. You're welcome.
Wow. Yeah, you're welcome. Exactly. That's what we should have said. But we started bending over backwards trying to take people off this map, and it was not an easy task. And we ended up just taking the entire map off. Yep. But that there, like in that moment, I realized, shit, we've got a target, and it's on our backs. And there, it was hard for me, and it still is hard for me to take responsibility for, at the end of the day, people made a decision to be part of the group, and they tied their businesses to the group, and it's a business decision that they made. But I felt very, very responsible for the drama and the pain, the very real pain. There's people that got kicked off the programs because of their membership, because of their association. And even a couple of years on, I was still getting, hey, don't mention me again. I like what you're doing, but don't mention me again on social media.
Well, I think
because
Andy,
of that fear of retribution.
That's a true statement. There are people that's the life, that's the kicks, right? But there are people who I hope you get the calls for the validation that say it changed my life. It changed my business. I wouldn't be here had I stayed on that path. And I tend to kind of gravitate towards those. I like to be more of an, I feel responsible for everything that we did. But at the end of the day, I didn't read the book on how to run a movement. Hell, I never read the book on how to be a parent. I figured it out the hard way, but we were made mistakes, and I'm of the belief that how do you do something great? By doing some shit bad, right? Yeah. How do you make a good brisket? You ruin a few briskets.
I think what we did wrong, and I don't want to make this whole thing about rehashing the rebel movement.
Let's come back to that. Yeah. Let's come back to it.
All right.
I want to go down the path, and then I want to get into lessons learned. But I want to go. We went from Bend. The second day we ended. We had a great bonfire. You introduced me, or someone introduced. I'm going to blame you. Introduced me to Pendleton bourbon,
whiskey, baby.
It was whiskey, yeah, whiskey, and the bartender and me and Laney and Doug partook in several bottles of it, playing pool till 4 a.m. It was the last time that I remember thinking my liver woke up next to me in the bed. It was pretty bad. But we woke up the next day. It was a 2-day event. The final day morning, we all agreed to have a breakfast there in the Deschutes Brewery, Deschutes Hotel Inn place. Beautiful place.
The Riverbend. Yeah, Riverbend Inn. Yes.
Yeah, Riverbend Inn. So we're having breakfast, and it's all, pretty much everybody, OP, Sean Ivory, all of us, and I think Dooley and Megan were still there. And we all were just like, what the hell just happened? What is this? What did we do? What is this? Is this real? What do we do next? Is the question.
Right.
And this is where I love to have the conversation. That's the moment in time where, what are we? Coalition? We're a union of sorts, or no, we're an alliance. We're bringing people in for an alliance.
Mm-hmm.
All of us that were nerds for Star Wars said, we're fucking rebels.
Mm-hmm.
And
the
that's
Rebel
where
Alliance,
the rebels,
baby.
That's where the Rebel Alliance Jedis came from. And whatever people want to make, the name Rebels is too harsh. It's from a Disney, it's from Star Wars, blah, blah. It was a mindset. And I think we're up against the Federation that, so that's where that came from. And I love telling that story, and people are like, yeah. So, do you still have your tattoo down here, your tramp stamp for the Rebel logo? I do, but I'm not showing it on the air, and I'm kidding.
I was so close to getting that logo right there. Actually the original is right there. Yeah. So that's the write-up in R&R magazine.
Yep.
And then we changed it up a little bit, but
then we had this week. Okay, now with the Rebels. Okay. And early on, it was something we said, and I think we changed the name of the group. Then we just started the growth happening. Andy, you pulled a hilarious trick or an act out that I still laugh about. You told everyone, I think we were up to about 40 or 50 people that were really into the Rebels. And you said, I want everyone to change their avatar.
That's right.
to the logo.
That's right.
And we had hopping around
a black and white version of that. Yeah.
Black and white
I want everyone to change their social media picture to that. Yep.
And I remember hopping around to different conversations, even other groups, even on LinkedIn with adjusters. We used to have these couple of adjusters that really loved you, Andy, that you had these long 400 comment threads on, and 2/3 of the people commenting all were rebel.
It's like bing, 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 bing.
It caused people to ask, what the hell is this? Is this a biker gang? Maybe, but that's where a shift happened, a moment, because people love community, love tribes. And and I just remember that day that you had everyone do that. It was that was so fun. Had a little bit of a swelling pride and kind of internal laughter.
And where it came down to the fact where if anyone made any comments or said anything that was contrary to common held beliefs or the way it's always been done. If someone said, well, I'm customizing my pricing, or I'm doing this that the industry has never done before, someone would inevitably comment like, what are you, one of those rebels? What are you, one of those restoration rebels? And at that point, I was like, damn straight we are.
We got something now.
Yeah.
So we were in the group. I want everyone to know that the group was funded on the tenets of, and eventually, I think this was before, but eventually you made a mission and vision and core values with Brendan, not Brendan, Dave and Jennifer at the resort. But from the beginning, it was education, community, and collaboration. It was it. It's simple. Like, let's educate people. I won't say we're the first ones, but man, did we ever promote that your competitors, probably not your competitors. They're probably struggling with the same things you are, and you have more other enemies that you should be worried about than them, and collaborate. And people did. But we promoted that. And then a lot of the culture of the group was come in here, ask the questions. Almost any question is palpable. It's not off limits. And, and that's where we started growing. We were watching the numbers and I remember you and I and Grubb and a few others saying, what if we get to 1,000 people? What if
I think we crossed over 1,000 coming into the Nashville event, the TPA summit for the RIA.
Strictly TPA.
Strictly TPA summit.
I didn't go. You did. And you you stood up and they gave you audience, didn't they?
Yeah, they didn't want to, but when you're 6'7" standing up in a crowd of a couple hundred people, you're kind of hard to ignore. So they had to give me the microphone eventually. And I was not asking outrageous. I was not there to try to stir the pot. I was there to actually get an honest answer.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this entire event was how to be a better pet contractor. And it just didn't sit well with me. And I was asking, I think it was JRC or some big contractor was there saying how well they're doing on this program, and they're essentially just kissing up to all these TPA guys, because all the TPA guys were there. I put out some mean memes on that one, and what's that one? We only charge 4%. I wish we could charge more. Or no, we only charge 8%. I wish we could charge more. And that was the mentality of these bigwigs that came into this event thinking they own the entire place.
Yeah.
And I asked this JRC guy, and I said, do you find yourself running two different businesses? Because you've got to have two different business models in order to be profitable on programs and do retail work. And his bullshit answer was, no, we do everything the same. It's bullshit. You don't do everything the same. But that was the first time we were actually able to kind of pin them to the wall. Yeah. And we showed the world, at least part of the world, we showed them, really, these guys are full of shit. These guys are really full of shit. There's think they own us.
There's some Fugazi going around.
There's some Fugazi happening there.
Yeah.
And you referred to our tenants, and I mean, there's the 4 agreements are very intentional. And I don't believe in competition is the main one. Is as long as we're competing with each other, they're going to let us, right? Yep. The carriers will let us fight each other because it's good for them. If the carriers can pit us against each other and think we're competing with each other instead of who's really pulling the strings and applying leverage is the carrier, then the carrier is going to win every time. And the danger of that information is really, I think, what scared people.
Well, this is all. I mean, we're talking the art of war now by Sun Tzu. I mean, so
yes, we are.
Divide and conquer and let them do it themselves. Let's don't get on the field and fight ourselves. Let's let our enemies fight each other, and that's what was happening. And we had against that, and so our Facebook group, the Rebels, was just a bunch of good people. Some came and went. Some
you had some turds. Let's be real.
We had them. No. Social media is social media. It's going to have some turds and some plants and stuff. But we had long live videos. We would have round tables, which at that time were really well attended, and just a lot of that stuff going on. And then it went on and on, Andy. We can cruise past this. We built the group and it kept growing. And then we got the a couple of thousand. We did have Nashville. I want to talk about that openly on this podcast. I think there's a lot of bullshit around what people believe happened and did not. So, but we, social media grew. We spent a lot.
I need another beer, but all right.
Yeah, but we invested a lot of our time willfully. No one forced me or you to do it. And at that time, I learned a very valuable lesson when I was helping build the Rebels, because I was so passionate about it. The Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I was trying to elevate up before I had stability and security in my own business. And I was out of balance with my time allotment. And I loved this, but how much money did we make off of that? 0.0. Did we
Nashville? We lost money on Nashville.
The Rebel group. The Rebel group.
Shit.
I mean,
we didn't make any money. No one made money on that.
We might have drawn.
I think
clients.
the first event, I think Bend. I think I cleared, because I financed the whole thing. I organized the whole thing. I paid for all it. I think I cleared $3,500.
Yep.
Total cost was 20 grand.
Yeah.
No one makes it. I mean, I wasn't making any money. You weren't making any money. And I think you're exactly right. Keep going down that road. I think Maslow's hierarchy of needs is very applicable, because you and I were both, I was coming off 2014. I was shit canned. I was fired. I restarted my consulting business 2015. I was still very much struggling. Hell, I'm still struggling today sometimes. And here's this thing we were literally pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into this group for zero return.
And we were giving away some of our best stuff, Andy. I mean,
all of it.
We were helping people make a lot of money, which I'm just proud that we did. I have no regrets, Andy.
I got no problem with that. Yeah.
About any of it. But I think we didn't conceptualize. We didn't know what we were doing. It literally took its own. It took a life of its own, and it grew. And again, we got this fake notoriety. I think that it gets to our. We're human. I think when I have a stranger walk up to me in Kansas City and said, "You're Clark Brown," I'm like, "That's what my dad said," But there's a feeling about that you try to suppress the ego, but you're like, it's working. We're saying something that people we never knew. Like this podcast. I really don't know how many people watch this podcast. I've seen some numbers, it's high, but it's not until someone comes back and quotes something back to me, and I'm like, that's a weird feeling. But so we were doing this thing. Everyone's, you're all the haters, let's just say Whitney or whoever wanted to, like, you guys are just scumming money off of people. I'm like, where's this money at that we're speaking of?
Yeah.
We're holding an event that people really go to. So
Show me.
We had this great, stupid, incredible, horrible idea. Let's go bigger after Ben. Ben was so magical. We got something here. We were attracting a lot more members, a lot more people, speakers and stuff. And so let's do another one in Nashville, Tennessee. And leading up to that
was our second one.
A second one.
Okay. All right. And there was a third summit. Boulder was okay.
Boulder was third. So Nashville, again, we are not professional organizers of such things. We're trying to do it. We held weekly and bi-weekly conference calls with the kind of leadership group, which was, all of us, John, and all these people, and Bob and stuff. And we just
it was a leadership group by attendance, not by anything else, because there was no board of directors. There was nothing organized. There was no LLC. Everything up until that point, and even through Nashville, I was using my own personal credit cards to guarantee this stuff.
And I want to bring that up for a very specific reason in just a moment, because I think this is going to clear a lot of things up. And I do want to clear this up because I don't want, we're flawed humans, but I don't want to be blamed for the wrong shit. I'm okay with owning my own crap, but not.
Right. I own my own shit. Yes. I know what it smells like. Yes.
But so we had this summit and we had sold tickets, and it ended up being, we had 200 people. And again, it was big. It was like 35 grand. It was big. No, it was more than that. It was
more. I forget.
So we tried to bring in more boosts and sponsors to offset.
We got a ton of sponsors
because that offsets the unit price for the individuals attending to try to make it. That was our thing. I didn't love having a trade show floor, but we only
charged like $150 a ticket.
It was.
I mean, it was the
super
cheapest
low.
conference anyone's ever gone to in the history of conferences.
We felt the information was good enough, and people need to hear it. It's more important to hear it. And we weren't the RIA. We weren't the experience. We weren't these.
We weren't there
groups.
Fundraising either. We just wanted to have the event.
We're a Facebook group having an event. That's all it was.
Exactly right.
So leading up to that, we're like spending money. I've got I want to let me get something to show you.
Uh-oh. Yeah. I can't find mine. I want to find it. I'm gonna go look for it.
These are collector's items. I think
they are now.
And it says Rebels Wanted.
Look at that.
And this was for leaders. And then we had so many giveaway. I mean, we had a great little giveaway bag for every guest, and probably we spent a lot. I mean, some people still show us some of it. The coffee mug, category 1 water only, Rebel coffee.
I love it.
But so let me go through it. There was not great organization around we used Eventbrite, an online thing, and there were some booths and some sponsors that didn't pay.
The whole thing. No, here's what it came down to. And when you sent over 2 days ago, when you sent over your rundown for what we were going to talk about today, I started really dialing it in. The crux, the biggest issue is with Nashville was, one of the main issue was I had nothing to do with it, right? I was done. I'm like, I'm not organizing this shit. I don't have time in my life. I've got to build my own business. I got to take care of my family. Somebody else took care of the major budgeting and organizing of the event and the event space. I don't want to throw them under the bus. I'm not going to mention them.
No, we're not.
But when it came down to it, there was this minor thing called a 30% premium on everything that they didn't account for.
Yeah.
The event space that we had, they quoted, the food and everything else, and we were feeding. We had 3 meals a day. What kind of conference has 3 meals a day? Well, I didn't know. Like you said, we don't know that. Mm-hmm. But and then when it came down to it, the day of, they're saying, "Oh, well, you owe us blah blah blah." I'm like, "What's this 30%? What's this? It was like gratuity and service fee or something. It was
fee, transfer, tourism.
It was just an add-on. It was a 30% add-on for the event space.
Yeah.
And I said, we don't have it.
We don't have it. We all kind of pooped our pants a little bit, didn't we? We all sat around and what are we gonna do? And that's what I want to say. So at that moment when we were handed the bill, the food and beverage was most of what it was, and then the event space cost us. The event space cost very little.
It was a food and beverage. That's what it was.
So food and beverage was handed to us, and Andy comes over and says, "Houston, we have a problem." And we all kind of gathered around the leadership. Joe Ledbetter was there, and we were short. I want to say, Andy, we were short about $8,000.
Yep,
give or take.
Yeah, that's a good number.
And we realized, what was wrong. We just didn't budget it right. And Joe and I agreed to split that. Like, you weren't in a position to do, I'll contribute a little bit. And Joe and I said, okay, well, we really don't have it. Let's double check the numbers.
Well, first we cut out meals, didn't we? We cut meals.
The second day we said, let's not do another meal, but they had already prepared. They were going to give it to homeless or something like that. So it was a whole bunch of stuff. Stuff we tried to mitigate as much as we could without making people misled. Because I think it was $200 a seat. I think you were close to it. I think it was about $199 or $200 for seats. And we kept saying, well, did people get $200 worth out of this conference? Hell yes.
Absolutely.
But so we were, the second day we were going to have it, and it went to a smaller room only because of a scheduling issue. They moved us across the hall. And here we have the chatter starting to go around, and even our leadership circle.
Can I share my screen real quick while you're talking?
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna first open this. There.
And those of you listening, I knew that we're gonna jump all over the place. If you don't,
you gotta let me share. But
I'm
just gonna bring up some pictures from Nashville, because the pictures I'm looking at, we had a great time. It was a great event.
It was.
But the fallout from that event was
It hurt all that. Look at that.
Look at that.
Ardno, Danny Burnett.
You want to
Tim
talk
Fuller.
about OG? Look at those guys.
Yeah, look at those guys. You big tall drink of water. There's David
Loose.
Shannon Loose. The Loose Bombs.
Right?
Yep. Aaron White
Aaron?
back there. Tim Rosansky.
These are the salt of the earth of the restoration industry
Danny,
to this day.
Epic Tim Fuller. Yep.
These people are, let me close out of this and get
That's
to
Ed Conley right there and David Bhattacharya. Just so many great people.
I mean, that's that picture there. I mean, when are you going to get two legends like that in the same picture?
Reeds and Dooley and Lindsey Brandon in the background.
What are the odds? We had, and these are what make me happy. These pictures make me happy.
I'm a rebel.
Of these people holding a sign, and they're stepping up and saying, I choose to be. I was looking for that picture with all of us standing up, and Joe is standing on a chair. I'm looking for that picture, but keep talking.
Well, there's a couple of good pictures in there. You can keep looking while we're talking here. There's Rick McCarthy. There was a picture of you standing next to Winton that I show everybody all the time.
Oh, that's so funny.
So it's really funny. But Chuck Violan was here, I think, at this one. There it is right there. But there's another one. There was another one that was cut. Go to the next one that was cut. And everyone, if you're not enjoying watching this, I don't care. But look at that. That's great. So if everyone watching is getting bored, I don't care. We're having fun. So Jerry Edel, there he is with Jordan.
Look at that. I mean,
listen, Shane O'Dazier. I'm just like, this is a throwback, and this is
Parker.
None of this goes away. Parker, yep. Parker, Rumsey is there.
That's what makes me the saddest about how this thing ended up. And there's your Cat One coffee or Cat One water only.
Rebel roasted coffee. Only use Cat One. But no one can take this stuff away, Andy. It may not be what it was then, but no one can. There's Jarrett and OVR, and so just on and on and on. We might put these into an album and attach them to the description of this. If anybody wants to look at these, let's share it up. Share it up, and we'll get the link so everyone can take a look at. Joe Bedwetter.
He is a full foot off the ground.
You're just great. But it was a good event. So we're heading into day 2. We've got this looming financial quagmire, but we're gonna and we kind of pulled some deals with the meals, and everybody's like, whatever. A lot of people were eating it elsewhere anyways. Nashville, if you remember, the Predators were in the playoffs, and a lot of people were going downtown to Broadway to go see the game or whatever. So it was fine. But day 2, the morning started off, and it really wasn't known by a lot of us.
Nobody.
Our very close friend, and still to this day, a rebel, Jerry Edel, decides to grab the mic and goes into an incredible speech of let's pass the war chest. This group put this together.
Let's create a war chest.
Create a war chest. This group has fallen into a problem of funds to finish. They're going to pay for it as whatever, but let's let this not be a broken reminder. And he passed the bucket, and OP was the first one. Says if somebody will agree to 1,000, OP said I'll match it. Ardno, $1,000. OP said there's 2,000. We passed it around, and I was sitting next to Dave, and I was looking at him, and I was like, did you know about this? And none of us did. And we were a little embarrassed, but also grateful. And then after the event, I'm going to skip to the drama. There were people in leadership that thought that there was going to be an abundance of money made from this. Right. And that there was going to be a big,
you take the total event minus 30%, there should have been.
Yeah. So there were people who had sour grapes that decided to go and advocate for bringing in a bunch of more people to bolster their position on things. And again, look at that. Look at that big, crazy, fat bastard. So,
wow. Look at us.
That's great. So, it was the next couple of weeks where we want to see the books. We want a financial audit. We want this, we want that. And first off, it was like, who the hell are all of you to ask us for anything? We held an event. You paid the price. You got a great show. Nobody asked Garth Brooks what he did with the money at a concert. Jump off a cliff. But that was not working, and that was probably counterintuitive. We contacted and called every single person that donated $1 beyond their ticket and said, there seems to be a feeling that you were misled. Would you like a refund? Every one of them except one. Well, one. Everybody but one. I'll tell you this and we'll cut it out. She wanted her $500 back. So that'll get cut. That will make the thing. Everybody said, hell no. We got $10,000 worth of value out of it. What's a couple $100? So
at least.
This thing kept rolling, and we were having these leadership calls kind of more often than we could afford to, and talking about it. It was a complete drain. It was a complete drain. Andy, you shared your bank account because again, everything funneled through your bank account. And personally, you had made a purchase of some Bitcoin. Well, when that got exposed by the people who wanted to educate that this was for Fugazi, Andy used the funds from the event to buy Bitcoin. Okay, you could draw that conclusion. It wasn't true. Everything
at the end of the day, what I did is I took funds and held them in a Bitcoin account. It wasn't just Bitcoin. I think it was other at the end of the day, it was a couple other coins, a couple other currencies. But then the day of, when we realized this thing was going to cost way more, I liquidated that account. But in the meantime, that actually made money. It was a great place to park the funds until we needed them, and we just needed more funds. So at the end of the day, it wasn't. But anyway, yeah, you're right. There was people are like, well, that's not proper.
People, all these non-accounting forensic people were getting all smart all of a sudden, and then we held a Zoom call like this, and we recorded those calls and saved them for those that missed it. And I made a comment. It's like, what do they think we did with all the money? You're already laughing. Hookers and blow?
Yes, I am. Tell me you got some hookers and some blow. Like whatever.
Well, that got downloaded.
Yes, it did.
Edited.
Somebody spent an inordinate amount of time and energy doing that little bootleg video thing. That was crazy.
Cut out the context of how that was a sarcastic comment. And it says, well, we just got cocaine and blow in Nashville. And then that went on the internet and went to Norv and went in the Rebels, got taken down. But that's where we're like, man, this is what we get for trying our very best to help people.
And that's what we're going to get. That's what anyone's going to get. Yeah, one of my favorite movies is, no, neither was I. Anyone who, one of my favorite movies, Moneyball.
Yeah.
With Brad Pitt. At the end of that movie, he's talking with the owner of the New York Yankees. And the New York Yankee, the owner, I think it was the owner or general manager. It was the owner. He said, the first one through the wall always gets bloody.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
We were the first one through the wall. We were trailblazing. We were going head first. And to hell with anything else, we were going to go do it. Well, we got bloody. We got hurt.
We got bloody, got hurt, got lost some friends, lost some credibility, maybe. I mean, presumed credibility. I don't think we really lost credibility, but people's perceptions were but I tell that story that we just told all the time, and it's just like, oh, well, that's not so bad. It doesn't sound the same when it's told with a good heart. It's when you're looking for malicious shit. It's look at that. That's a good people right there. Look at Brian Daltrey.
And this is not organized. This is just people getting together, and creating something. And we came away with something. What's too bad is it didn't. It was destroyed.
It was never the same after that. We held on. We held on. Some people came and went. We cut some tumors that were in our leadership circle that not only exposed themselves, and of course that was a big thing, is we're going to kick out some people now after Nashville because they were whistleblowers. Well, that screw it, we're already dying, why not cut the limb off? But We just had to cut the cancer to keep this thing real, because we did have a sense of ownership of this thing, that there are a lot of other people that still just want the rebels for information and blah, blah. So we're going to forget that as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We cut some people out, and listen, moving beyond the group, I think the group grew. It became something I didn't like watching. Watching a new person ask a question,
same question over and over and over again,
over and over and over, or a stupid question, and then get just piled on top of. And there was one person, and I talked to that. I mentor that young man today. He's in our industry. He posted of himself in a basement full of flooded water up to here, and all anyone says, "Are you aware how dirty that is?" And they said, "Where's some waders?" He said, "I'm wearing them, but they're down here." And my employer put me into the situation, but he was told that you need to get out of the industry, go back to the books, you're a fool, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, "I just came here asking for some help from some people who said they would help."
Right.
That's a legitimate framing of what this was, is when people are treated terribly when they ask a dumb question, number one, they'll never ask another question.
Nope.
You've ruined the opportunity. Now they're going to continue to do things wrong, and then we're going to bitch about them being hacks because they aren't doing things
no
right.
one else is going to ask a question.
Nobody else. It kills what we stood for. And that began, and we started firing, getting rid of people. We had mods. I mean, God, how many mods we had at one time? 14 mods, different time zones. And we got rid of some people, but at the core, we had the core going on. And, Andy, I look back at you and I zipping across the country, holding workshops in San Diego. And we met those guys and had dinner with Pat Moffitt from the ICRC. And
we did LA, we did Ohio.
We did Ohio, we did Cleveland with Blake.
Oh, Cleveland, that's right. Yep.
Cleveland, Ohio. And we had these, we went to Michael together, we went to Florence together and stayed in the camper together. It was great in a non-gay way. It was awesome.
Speaking of lessons learned, yes.
Lessons learned. but again, we did some stuff. We have different business ideas, you and I, and ultimately, let's face it, John and I went on and formed the Alliance of Independent Restorers and legalized that. And it just wasn't, and again, still to this day, we're not making any money out of that. And nobody is. And it does take more time. But I have now learned that Maslow's, and I now have built a business that allows me enough flexibility to put a percentage of my time towards my passions. And that takes a lot of doing. It takes a great team. It takes a lot, and it can easily slip away. So
there's the best for you.
It's the best. I think those pants were a standard issue for Rebels right there. Those pocket pants.
Yes, they were.
But
9 mil is an aftermarket ad.
So we had, we crisscrossed. You were teaching the Xactimate. I was trying to teach some business essentials. We've never been drying and mold guys and stuff like that. There's plenty of people that teach that stuff very, very, very well. And we supported those folks and brought them into the group. And but I just wanted to help people stay in business longer. And you wanted to help people avoid the things that were going to kill their business and talk some common sense into people.
I want this industry to make such a good profit that they can actually grow.
Yeah.
They can actually advocate for themselves. They can actually stand on their own without fear of reprisal, without fear of, well, if I don't follow these bullshit rules, I'll be out of business next year. And that's still
it happens every day.
Every single day there's a restorer that goes out of business.
Every day. I don't get it. I would never have a business that depended on someone else deciding what my worth was going to be.
Right.
I think my client now can tell if they don't think we're worth what our premium or our fee is for coaching, because I'm gonna make you a juggernaut. You're gonna be a star and rich and independent. But if you don't see the ROI, I wouldn't expect you to pay a dime. There may be somebody that's cheaper, and you get a cheaper contractor, you get a cheaper coach, you get a cheaper estimator, or whatever. Kind of like you get what you pay for. But we had this great thing.
Always cheaper. Yeah,
always will cheaper. Be. And if you want to go that way, but I look at myself as a restoration contractor. We preach about people who want cheap, but meanwhile, we might be the same way. So pay the money and then find a way to make the money, because making money, I watched a video last night. Once you figure out the algorithm of making, let's just say your first million, it's the mystery. The curtain's pulled back. I just made $1 million, and now I can just need to figure out how to
It's
do
a
it
rinse and
more times.
repeat. Yep.
It's a rinse and repeat. Now, I'm past that. When you don't know how to ride a bicycle, it seems like riding a bike is impossible. When you don't know how to play the guitar, you think it's impossible. But then you find yourself playing some Metallica themes, and you're like, I barely remember not knowing how to do this, but now how far can I go? So life has a way of taking us through cycles, and you just got to realize that I'm in a certain early stage of this cycle. Rebels, move forward. I left, tried to come back. I wasn't having fun anymore. I was watching it, and I wanted to fix it.
You weren't. I could see it. You were not being you. It was not joyful for you.
I was spiteful. I wanted to fix it. I felt like it was now a broken thing, and we had to repair it. But I was the only one that saw it that way, because the people that were there, like, we still love it here. So I'm like, okay. So there was everyone to know, I was publicly and privately to our moderators preaching that if anybody has a better way to run this thing, go for it. It's yours, take it. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't like the way it happened. I thought it was a little sloppy of kicking a lot of people out that didn't want to be kicked out, but it all kind of equalized in calibrated back, and there was a new regime, and it's fine. But I will tell you, I have no problem agitating the fact that we started it, Andy, and anybody else there now is just squatting.
We did.
Built it. Whatever you think you want. You don't have one of these, and I'm going to be a cocky asshole. Your camper doesn't have one of those. But it wasn't what made us who we are. It gave us a place to flesh out who we're becoming. I fell in love with coaching because of that. Literally, that group let me hear voices that I didn't hear before, of pains that I've said I can help with those things. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't have clients now and Toby working with me. We wouldn't have clients that were getting the relief, the independence, the whatever. So I credit the Rebel role, the movement, the ecosystem for that. I'm not bitter. Andy's my brother. We're going to be connected for a very long. We're going to be two old dudes standing on stage. I want to say this. So you talked about the strictly TPA thing. I want to come back to this, that being your pinnacle of the thing. To me, the thing that I'll never forget, it was a little painful, but also like, wow, is the Belfour email.
Oh, wait, but you weren't involved in the Belfour email.
No. Well, I was involved with Rebels. So the Belfour memorandum company-wide.
That's right. That's right. Should I pull it up? I can find a copy. I got Google Docs right here.
You're ready. He was ready for this podcast. But it basically says, if you're doing, you don't speak for our company on social media platforms, because there was a lot of arguments about the way people did things. And then Rusty wrote, and I know Rusty, and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be part of blacklisting our peers, but it said, if you follow Andy McCabe or the Restoration Rebels, stop immediately. Andy,
unfollow now.
What happened in the next 24 hours, Andy?
We had no less than 1,000 applications from Belfour employees across the country. And my LinkedIn, I mean, it was 100 a day. 100 Belfour employees a day would hit me up on LinkedIn to try to connect.
You tell people not to do something, they're going to do it.
You tell something. I mean, okay, I found it. Here it is. We're gonna read it. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to move this over here so I can see it better.
2018, March 26th.
It would appear that some people in our company follow Andrew McCabe on LinkedIn. One of McCabe's current positions is a founder at Alliance of Independent Restorers. Review your account. If you are following him, please unfollow as soon as you can. And then blah, 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 blah. But he was nice enough to give links to all my shit so people could find me. Thanks for that.
Yep.
The kicker is, at the RIA event, I sat right next to Rusty. Rusty was right next to me when I stood up and asked the hard question to JRC. And
so that was beginning of his drafting of that letter. So don't worry about it.
Oh my God.
No, there's a couple other times, Andy. I used to. I loved you like a brother, but I also grit my teeth about your way. But I'm like, I can't do my way and have people hate me. But I'm walking into Austin, Texas, into a hotel at the RIA conference, and you had that evening before, late, something had triggered a rant or a conversation, and you're like, who are you? Show me the money, or whatever it was. But I remember walking up, and I was with Parker. A couple of us were kind of representing the Rebels. We had on Rebel logos, and we were going to RA event trying to form hopefully some kind of alliance, I guess you could say, continuing our belief that. And I'm walking up, and there's a group of the current OG RIA guys, the current gang, mafia gang, and they're all sitting there looking at their phone, and they look up. Ben Justins is one of them, and Norris and Lauren, and they look up, and they just had this appalling look on their face, like, and we're like, what the hell are you looking at us like that for? And they're like, have y'all not seen this? And like, we just freaking got up and got our coffee and got here, and they showed it, and I'm like, okay, so this is going to be a weird 2 days.
I don't remember. Yeah.
You don't remember that? It was like a
show. I don't remember. I don't remember the video.
You made it.
Is it up still? Somewhere? Did I? Okay.
No, it may be in the group, but it was just a show me the money. I don't know what it was about. I don't think it was meant. Obviously, there's some thin skin in some of this industry and stuff. And it was targeted at Mark a little bit. Mark Springer. There had been some conversations. I don't know. It was kind of seemed, for people like us, it seemed kind of harmless. But to people that aren't used to being called out, it was major. And I think that's what a little bit of that was. It was
there's a lot of people in the world in general that really believe they live in anonymity. They believe that nothing they do or say is ever no one's ever going to know. Right. They operate, I don't want to say in the shadows, but they operate outside of the public spotlight. So they believe that, whatever they're doing is nobody else's business, even though they work for public companies and public, very public facing
I
things.
agree with that. There's a saying, Andy, sunlight is the best disinfectant. When you shine light on it, it's best disinfectant. Now, in terms of RIA or any group, I think that when you've been listening to your own narrative for so long, it's odd to hear opposing, and just like we might not have been receptive of other people telling us sometimes what to do, that exists. I think we have to recognize it on both sides. I'm friends with the RA. They kind of feel all the time like there's a little bit of this, but I'm part of a chair putting together the virtual conference right now because I believe in education. And I will say that I think that over the past couple of years, you and I talked about this, I think that the RIA and other things have begun to evolve conversations to include things they weren't saying before.
I think they had to. I think they had to because we forced the conversation.
There's a lot of people out here that you're not touching, and they won't come to your events. They won't join the RA because they aren't aligned with what that other layer of speaking's about. So
would you have the president of Verisk on a stage at an RIA event talking about pricing if we hadn't been talking about pricing? I don't believe it. I don't believe RIA would have had them there.
No,
and there's a lot of folks. Yeah, there's no issue. Yeah, what's the issue? What's the problem? Yeah. Even though every single member of RIA has problems, and they're very solvable problems, but for the longest time we weren't talking about it. Yeah, and I vaguely remember that video, and I am an emotional person.
Fine.
and I think most of the time especially in those days, I was speaking without thinking. I was just getting it out because my theory. Yeah,
the microphone.
I had the mic.
Face. We had the mic. We had a platform, and that can get. And I've read the book. All of us, ego is the enemy. We don't mean to be egotistical, but when mic is there and you're getting feedback, you feel like everybody wants to hear it. I'm guilty of the same things, and I'm man enough to admit it. So, Andy, I want to shift over. So, Rebels were great. They served a purpose. You and I have talked about. It's not going to die. It'll always be there. These pictures, I want to make sure we get those pictures up on the.
There'll always be a space.
There'll always be a space.
that's not where the industry needs to go now.
No, I think it's worn. I think the online forums have now, everybody's gassed out of them. I have my own now, Restoration Nation, and our traffic is not much. I mean, people are still in Rebels. People still talk about the Rebels. Doesn't bother me. But I promise in our group that we won't allow shenanigans. And you signed to agree to rules in the beginning. You don't get a warning. You agreed. And by the way, there should not be a rule to not be an asshole. If I've got to make a rule to not be an asshole, you're not the right kind of person. But anyway, I don't want us to live in a digital world. I want us to be living with the great intention of our company, have a great culture, have staff and stuff like that. But I want to jump to something. I know I want to, you know, we're into this thing a while, and I don't care. I don't care how long this is. Rogan runs for 3 hours. We can do an hour and a half, 2 hours. I listen to, I don't listen to podcasts, but I came across one from Restoration Domination, Rico.
Okay. Yep.
You
Rico.
were on.
I like him.
And I do like him. I listened, I looked, I was like, wow, there's another podcast in the restoration space. So how do I not know about it? You know, I knew about Jarrett. I know that Brandon Reese and Chris Nordyke have one, and then there's a couple of podcasts now. And I was like, look, there's plenty of space for everybody. But I listened to yours, and it was good as always. You have such a good way about it. But you and Rico started talking about a few things that I really wanted to talk about real quick. Is our industry has forgotten how to sell what we do. We just assume that we're going to get the job through the carrier's going to approve it, but we forgot how to sell. And then it went into people not collecting deductibles and being afraid to.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said something that I've always talked about was the contract, which is the policy, is meant for incurment, costs incurred, and a deductible being paid triggers that transaction of it's now. But when a customer has no financial obligation yet, and you're using a work authorization, which is not a contract, and they don't owe you a dime, period. And people hate hearing that.
Huge risk.
It's a huge risk. And it's reason that your receivables are 45% of your revenue is because your customers know they don't have to pay you. So you were talking about that. And I think we have gotten away from getting deductibles. It's cash flow. It's, you know, and they're growing. That's a problem. I mean, we're seeing these 1% and 2% of homes, which are, those could be huge, but that's, again, I don't have sympathy for customers that bought a policy that shit terms. You bought it, and not everyone's a victim. I don't like that we victimize people just because they had a flood in their house or a fire. I'm sorry. I hate it. It happens. And luckily we're a company that does it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to sink my company because you had a fire. And I think our industry, our overreaching empathy does that. But you did a good job of framing that we're not starting and triggering that financial relationship, that obligation that the customer is going to have eventually. And it starts with paying.
We're not planting a seed. We're perpetuating, in general, not all of us.
We're trying to hide the fact of what our bill is going to be.
We're trying to hide what the bill is going to be, and we're perpetuating this nonsense that it's free.
Yeah.
I have an insurance claim. Everything I do is free. And it still persists to this day. Yeah. And so those types of talking points, I think, are huge to keep harping on until most people hear it and understand it. Yeah. If you don't have skin in the game, you have zero incentive to fight.
Yeah.
Right. Why would your customer fight for you if they don't have to pay for any of it? They're just going to take what the insurance company says. Well, the insurance company says you're ripping me off, so I guess you're ripping me off.
Yeah, but they're not going to fight for you or protect. They're not going to say, well, they were here right when everything they've done is they've done. They've been here on time. They've been clean. They've helped me through this. They've helped me, blah, blah, blah. They're not protecting you against this slanderous activity from the carrier. And that's what my onboarding was. They haven't heard your side of it. They don't know that you're they don't know that you're a small to medium-sized business in the community, just trying to feed 14 other employees and their families. That's
the hardest part about this industry is no other industry is forced to justify and re-justify their actions and justify and re-justify their invoices. Yeah, you can't find an industry that does that.
Take a picture of your dumpster or we won't pay for the dumpster.
Right?
Get the fuck out of here. What do you think? I ate all the debris?
Right?
I threw the stuff away. I mean, you're
What the hell
saying
do you
that
think I did with it? Put it back in the house?
I'm guilty. Is that a customer? It's in their trash bin. It's going to go out on Tuesday. 2,000 square foot of flooring. You're saying that I'm a liar until I prove that I'm not. I don't.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up
And
for
it's
that.
backwards. It's backwards. None of us did, and that's where we find ourselves in that game. We're in the really dirty thing is we're negotiating against ourselves.
And each other, and
Yeah,
our peers,
and each other, and
Yeah.
our peers. We're fighting with each other. We're negotiating against ourselves. I mean, how many guys are willing to just take 20% off the top of their invoice, just like that? You know, the adjuster.
Don't you think
all the adjuster has to say is, "Oh, that seems high," and then most people were like, "Oh, what do I do?"
Well, because they
Instead
don't
of
know
like,
what it
"Fuck
costs
you,
them to do it.
that's my
Because
bill."
again, they don't
They
know
don't
how much money
understand their
they're
true
paying.
costs. Yeah,
It's
exactly
easy
right.
to take. It's like your taxes. You don't look at how much you're getting taxed because you get your check after tax, right? And you know, most people that get a weekly paycheck and a regular job, it's easy to be. They could add another 1 or 2% there. You never notice it because you're just looking at what I bring home. You have to start thinking of that way. So I think we agree on all that. You know, I do agree with something you said. I think that almost as big a threat as big insurance. I mean, at some point we have to take accountability that we're allowing a large entity, which clearly does not have our or the customer at the claim side. They do not have the customer's best interest at heart.
No,
they would not send out a shitty program vendor that doesn't dry a home if they cared about the home. They would not let other people come behind and re-dry a house or re-clean it after the first guy didn't do it right. If they care, they would vet people and do some kind of QC. So there you go. On the claim side, you're a liability. You're not an asset. You're going to be treated as such, and that's just it. But I do think that the competitors and the peers are as big a threat as the insurance that are running illegitimate shop. And I say illegitimate. I still want regulation in this industry. I don't like regulation generally as an independent, generally as a rebel, as a libertarian. I don't want government thing, but it cannot be so easy for someone yesterday that was selling ice cream cones to be a restorer today. I think that there's, and I live where I live, Andy, in Virginia, and I say this on all my podcasts, seems like it keeps coming up. You've got to have a license to cut hair, but not to clean up sewage in someone's home that can cause MRSA and bacteria and E. coli and flesh-eating bacteria that's like hitting in Florida right now. So where is the balance of that? Because there's no one advocating for our industry, no lobbyist making that serious. So we were we were 2 dudes and then 5 dudes and 12 dudes or whatever, now hundreds. We were trying to have this conversation, but not in a way that people used to say we were an echo chamber, that we were just talking to ourselves. I don't agree with it, but it's not making a dent in the big problem. But stopping would be the worst thing ever to do. We can't stop.
No, I can't. I can't stop. When I see the truth, when I see injustice, I have to say something about it. But at the end of the day, you're exactly right. I think needs to be regulation. You can't expect a $300 billion industry to self-regulate.
Yeah.
What other industry of that size self-regulates? I mean, hell, if you sell, you sell $1 billion worth of windows, there's a lot of rules you got to follow to sell those windows. And the strangest thing is, at the end of the day, we're all contractors, but we don't act like contractors. Why are we playing by a different rule set?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and obviously it keeps us up and keep us doing what we're doing. What I've learned, Andy, what I've really been trying to do is, the Facebook groups were great for what they were, and there's a portion of our time that should be committed to that to create. But I've moved to more of a permanence of my intellect, and that's where the podcasts and blogs and my ideas are now going into a permanence where they can always be found. And I got an email yesterday from I made one yesterday about roofers. I mean, I don't know roofing, but I know that roofers often ignore the opportunity of internal damages that are occurring because of roof penetrations, because they don't have,
it's not in their wheelhouse. Yeah.
Not in their wheelhouse. They don't have meters. You can't see the water right away. It's in the attic and the insulation. But it's an opportunity to tell that customer, yeah, I really care about you. I'm going to care so much that I'm bringing out a professional because I think you've got some odor here, some moisture. But I made this blog is just understand and go deeper, find a relationship with the local trusted person that you can have partnership with. By the way, it's reciprocal. We get calls sometimes, roofs to a house. So, and then Joe Dobbins, Uncle Joe Dobbins from REITs, just he comes and said, like, I just these keep it up. These conversations aren't happening. These are little nuggets that make a bigger picture of just all these. It's an education you can go to. So, what's
if
the
we
future
can just
for
stop
you, Randy?
fighting each other. If we
Fighting
can
each
stop
other.
fighting each other, it'll go a long ways. You say,
I was just in Florida. Did you go to Florida? You weren't down in
Hell
South
no,
Florida.
I'm trying to stay out of Florida.
Well, I went down for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, you were there for 2 weeks.
2.5 weeks. I launched my new
started
company,
something randomly.
FedEx. Well, it's been up here. It's actually been in my journal for a while. I've been developing a business. It was going to be a 2023 thing, and then I'm down there, and I have a couple clients that were in South Florida, and I went to support them. And large loss was what I did. So, and it just like opportunity
Made sense.
I brought it up, and we put together a little landing page and signed up a lot of work, and I helped a lot of guys put numbers on their jobs that they were going to put awful numbers on, and they just were going to really burn themselves. And but it's really going to be more about education. I'm going to be more interested in January, February, March, planning on if I'm going to go to the storm, how do I not blow up my home base? How do I get down there and maximize? That's going to be as much of it as possible. I like education more than I like proactive versus reactive. So we did that, but what are you up to? What's you're still claims delegates doing incredible. I have a lot of clients that use your claims.
Still trying to figure out the scalability of something that it seems to be. I've been doing this full time since 2012. It's just stubbornly unscalable, and it has more to do with the nuance and the particular personality of how do you write your estimates versus how do I write my estimates versus how do they write their estimates. Trying to scale the Xactimate estimating side has proven to be more difficult, and I think that's why you don't see a lot of Xactimate estimating companies at scale. I mean, even the guys that look big are not really that big. They've got 4 or 5 different people. But trying to take this thing, we probably did $2 billion worth of estimates last year between the 5 of us, that's not small potatoes, especially when you're talking about, a lot of the MITs will write, we'll charge a guy a half hour worth of time and write $5,000 MIT. It takes a lot of $5,000 MITs to get to $1 billion, but we do some big stuff too. So that's where I'm, since, after Nashville and even after, so a year later or a year and a half later, I decided to take a job with ATI. And that didn't work, mainly because of my reputation. Earned or not, I have a reputation. And so I came back from that, my time at ATI with, man, I should just concentrate on this business and figure it out. Because for the longest time, I've had shiny object syndrome. I've had the rebels. I've had this other stuff. I want to do bing, 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 bing. And really, my business, Claims Delegates, has suffered because of my lack of focus. So that's where my focus is. I want to go from 4 full-time writers to 10. And if I can get to 10, that dog hunts, and then that model will scale. But the difference between 4 and 10 is a whole lot of mechanics that I don't have figured out yet.
Is there disruption in the way of the future of claims writing?
I think there is.
Yeah, I think it's this. I mean, will claims
I don't know if
always be a thing? Will at some point will customers scan their house with their phones in an app and it will produce and I think it happens in a way a little bit now, but
you've got Impartial is a completely AI based estimating system that still uses Xactimate. and you've got Encircle doing their thing, floor plan stuff, and Hydro. And so yeah, very much. And Matterport is trying to sneak into that space. So I think, very much so the standalone Xactimate professional is kind of a dying breed. Technology will surpass us. But right up until that point where technology gets to the point where it's passable, where it's like, oh, this thing can actually write a good sheet. Yeah. Right up to that point, we're going to be busier than ever. I think there's still going to be a huge need. And then when that happens, and I think we're probably 2-3 years out, when that happens, I need to be in a position to either sell my business that I've built, hopefully, because right now there's nothing to it, right? I've got a couple sub agreements and myself. I don't have a business. I've got a hobby that takes up all my time.
Right.
At that point, I need to position myself so I can sell and get out and find the next thing, because Xactimate will go away eventually, or at least the way we look at it, the way it presents today, will go away. And I don't think it's going to be Symbility or somebody else. It's not going to be an incumbent technology that comes in and kicks Xactimate off. It's going to be a sea change in technology and how things are done. It's going to be AI based, whatever it is. So anyway, that's one portion of where I'm trying to head, but
I still like you in the educating space, Andy. I think educating and teaching.
I think there's still something there. If I gotta peel myself away, I think, and maybe it's just me and my self-consciousness speaking, I think I've got to peel myself away from the Xactimate moniker and get more restoration business focused.
I would agree with that. I think a lot that a lot of people don't. You can make a really great living in this world by solving a problem. It doesn't matter how many people solve that problem. People like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and some people don't like the other. So there's a place and a favor for someone's brand. And I think anyone that's unfortunately, teaching doesn't pay great. It's okay. Right. It's gobbled up now. Going virtual, which I don't love teaching virtual, but it obviously mitigates a lot of the travel for me, as well as those participating, which might yield a better ticket price. But teaching is something that I'm passionate about, and I'm going to make it work. And and as well as our digital products have become extremely
digital products are going to be more and more. Yeah. I've got the one course, and I think 10 courses that dog hunts pretty well.
Yeah, we're stacking. I'm going to make a T&M course in the next year. We've got a couple now that are just great courses, good content, easy to consume on any device, and they sell at night while we're asleep, and things that solve a problem. What are people? And I think that you and I, and if anything, people say, did you make money off of the Rebels? I think if we had our ear to the ground and listened to what people's pains were, and we could find a way to solve that problem, then yes, we could have for that. Indirectly. And I think I still do. I'm not, pains are pains, and they're all dealing with it, and there's always gonna be somebody new. But what I found in coaching, Andy, and teaching is just showing somebody how to do it's just not enough. They've got to actually be at their rock bottom to want to change, especially if it's something as difficult as
you've got to affect a change. You've got to affect a shift, a mentality shift.
I think teaching for you is a natural. You just got to figure out your lane, your vehicle, your capacity for it. But I always know that when we traveled, I remember several classes where you held that audience. So I think that's
it was fun. It was fun.
And it's my favorite part of the last couple of years is I used to say I'm not a people person, but I kind of like meeting people, but only for short periods of time. I'm an introvert, and I only have so much energy credit in the bank.
And as long as I don't have to share a hotel room with you ever again, that'd be great.
I do snore.
Is that what you call it?
I call it snoring. It was a Cat 5 snore.
It's like you take sleeping and snoring it's a full contact sport. I mean, it's aggressive.
In this corner, I have apnea. So in this corner we have great, man. When am I gonna? Where are you gonna be this year? You gonna come out? You coming out of the Bend, Oregon shell, or what? You gonna travel anytime?
Yeah, well, we're coming into winter, so
Yep.
I'm gonna try to just circle the wagons and stay local. I think I've successful in pricing myself out of going to Florida.
Yeah.
I can't believe what people are willing to do work for down there. I got a
That's
guy, I got
a
to
whole
email
nother
me out of
field.
nowhere, and you know, I'm in Florida now. I'll do the inspection and the Xactimate for $200 flat.
Well, yeah. So Dooley came over to my Airbnb and we just talked about anything. Eventually, everything becomes a commodity. As more people
Yes.
see people doing it, the
Yes.
price will be diluted, and you just got to stay ahead. You know, Dooley's doing great with Kahi right now, but everything becomes a commodity. Our restoration services, inspections, moisture mapping. I just see people say, "Oh, we're not getting paid for that. What we used to make." Well, I can't believe you're making what you used to make for moisture mapping, but you know, it's everybody has their own thing. But I'm with you. I just saw some. I did a podcast on things I was seeing in Florida. I did a few. I did a podcast on what I was seeing in Florida.
This is Trey Rains, and I just pulled a Tyvek suit off, and I'm still more comfortable than listening to the awkward conversations on the Disaster Podcaster.